Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is Louie, and I'm a huge Zelda nerd. Now that I got that out of the way, I wanted to explain Nintendo's triple timeline to you guys, for those of you who don't understand. I spent all last night, I couldn't sleep, thinking about how this works and how this timeline, through the three timeline, fits. And I'm going to show you the conclusion I came to, and to me it makes the most sense. Now, Nintendo has stated, and I know this is just graph paper with handwriting, it may not be aesthetically pleasing, but it gets the job done. Nintendo said there are three timelines. There's a main one and two others that follow it, or that are running parallel with it. Now, I'm not going to dispute that there aren't three timelines. I'm totally going in the context and with all the information Nintendo has given us that there's three. Now, people have a hard time understanding how there could be three, so I just want to explain that to you real quick. Alright, so this is the original timeline. Whoops. And the first in the series was Skyward Sword, followed by the Minish Cap, then the Four Swords, the Game Boy Advance version, then Ocarina of Time. Let me say something about this circle I made right here anyways. A lot of people don't see how Skyward Sword can be followed by Minish Cap, but who's to say that there aren't any games in between, and how many years go by or pass between these two games in order for them to take place after another. But not getting into that right now, I'm going to go into the three timelines. So, based on what we know, because we don't have the translations of word for word on how it was said in these Japanese art books or the Japanese encyclopedia, in the three timelines, I've named one the alternate future, the original timeline, and the alternate past. And I'm going to explain how I came up with these names and why I believe it works. So in Ocarina of Time, in these orange brackets, Link, during this time, right here, is where Link pulls out the Master Sword. When Link does that, he goes 7 years into the future. Now, if you follow me with all these green numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the arrows, in this future, just because you gotta understand this, that if you were to go into the future right now, you don't create a separate timeline. You leave your present to go into the future, which will then become your present. Well, okay, so I hope you follow along with that. So he's 7 years into this future, which is right here, inside the orange bracket. So this is within the 7 years. But he goes back into the past. And this is during the time, like you go back into the past with the knowledge after you've gained the Song of Storms, and you're going to look for the Lens of Truth. So you go into the past, and then you play the Song of Storms in the windmill, and you go gain the Lens of Truth. So you change some things in the past. So when you put the Master Sword, when you pull the Master Sword back out from the pedestal, instead of going 7 years back into the future, you're going 7 years into an alternate future because you've changed stuff in that past. You've changed stuff in this past, which was your present. So because you made some changes to this past, there's going to be changes in the future. And instead of going into your future, you wouldn't go into your future, the original future you were in. You're going to go into the alternate future due to those changes. And that's not the first time he makes some changes in the past, because he goes back again right before the Spirit Temple and during the Spirit Temple to gain the Silver Gauntlets and to help Noburu and Kuminku take her away, and we all know the story from there. But he goes back into that alternate future for the last time. So that last time he goes into the alternate future, Link takes himself out of this timeline right here. Since Link is no longer in this timeline, he never comes back to it. Not even in the ending of Ocarina of Time does he come back to it. And I'll explain that. But let's just go on with this. He's out of this timeline, right? Which Nintendo says is followed by A Link to the Past, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, Link's Awakening, The Legend of Zelda, the original one, then Zelda 2, Link's Awakening. Now, in A Link to the Past, they talk about 7 sages who sealed Ganon, who had a complete Triforce, right? Well, in Ocarina of Time, he never had a complete Triforce. So, in A Link to the Past, he has one. So, sometime between Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, he ends up claiming the full Triforce, and he gets sent to the Sacred Realm without Link. We know Link didn't help him, or help the sages, because it wasn't known. No one ever talked about him. And in all these games, they never talk about the Hero of Time, ever. He's never mentioned. So, that goes on with my theory that he totally removed himself from this timeline. And I didn't come to the conclusion yet in the alternate future or the present. I'm just going on with this one. So I believe that there is a game or a few games that will explain later on how Ganon came to power in A Link to the Past during the events of Ocarina and A Link to the Past. There's something missing here that hasn't been revealed yet, and we do know that Nintendo is working on a few more Zelda games. Now, let's go to the alternate future. Okay, so after Link helps Nabooru in the Spirit Temple, he goes back, completes all that, then he goes to Ganon's castle, and he rescues Zelda and everything, right? Then Zelda decides to send him back to his past. The thing is, she's not sending, actually not that she's sending him to his past, she's sending him to his childhood so that he can, quote unquote, live the way he was supposed to be, the way he was supposed to be. So, let's just assume she didn't want to get him mixed up into all this trouble, because she's the cause of why Ganon got a piece of the Triforce in the first place in Ocarina of Time. So she sends him back to the past, and the past that she sends him to isn't the past that is in the original timeline. She sends him to the alternate past, which is right before he pulls out the Master Sword. And we know this because at the end of Ocarina of Time, the very, very end scene, Link walks up to Zelda in the garden of Hyrule, and the screen just ends there with the end. And we can only assume, with being the nerds that we are, that Link told Zelda everything Ganon had planned on doing. And I guess what made his story sound true was the fact that he had knowledge about her family, the royal family tradition, and things like that that no one else would have ever known randomly. So how did he not sound credible? So let's just say, for the sake of everything, she believed him, told the king, they stopped Ganon, and then it goes on to Majora's Mask. He still, in Majora's Mask, they retained that there was a kid who traveled through time and became legend, and that he crept away from that land. And Zelda gave him the Ocarina of Time. Well, he still retained the title of hero, but they don't really necessarily call him the hero of time in Majora's Mask. They just call him that. We know that he's just a hero. Then after Majora's Mask, Nintendo said it's followed by Twilight Princess, then Four Swords Adventure on the GameCube. Now, in Twilight Princess, we know Ganon has a piece of the Triforce. Yet, if Zelda and Link were to prevent it in the alternate past of Ocarina of Time, which leads to Majora's Mask, there's something missing in between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, which again hopefully will be revealed later on within the game or a few, as into how Ganon got a piece of the Triforce in Twilight Princess. So that explains the alternate past. You guys with me so far? So far, Zelda sent him back in the alternate future to this alternate past to prevent the mistake that they made within the original timeline of pulling the Master Sword out of the pedestal, which allowed Ganon to claim the Triforce. So, now let's go back to the future. Totally forgot where I was at. Let's go back to the future. So, in this future, just because she sent Link back, it doesn't mean that this timeline doesn't exist anymore. This alternate future exists, but it's running without Link, which we know Link isn't anymore, because in Wind Waker they say that Ganon came back, but the hero never returned. And we know that in Wind Waker, excuse me, we know in Wind Waker, it's a whole new Link. It's not the same Link anymore. And that one is followed by Phantom Hourglass, then Spirit Tracks. So, I hope this picture, or my theory, as in how the 3 timeline works, clarifies a lot of the things. Because I do believe now, because Nintendo helped us, that there is, it's not that I do believe, I have to believe, because they're the creators of it. So, if they say there's 3 timelines, there are 3 timelines. But I believe this is how it fits and makes sense. And I hope you guys understood it, and I didn't make it too confusing. And I thank you guys for listening to me nerd out all over all over my desk. And yeah. Alright, thank you guys, and I'm out.